Shalom. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahabashai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned the truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahabashai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahabashai is what the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahabashai. And pretty much this is a continuation of the video I just finished doing concerning Apostle Paul's Roman citizenship and how he used that to escape particular trials, tribulations, and murder plots of the wicked Sadducees, which all the Sadducees were wicked. They didn't believe in the afterlife. Every single last one of them is wicked. And you had wicked Pharisees as well. Not all the Pharisees was wicked. You have examples in the scriptures of righteous Pharisees, like Apostle Paul, Gamaliel, his teacher, Nicodemus, as well as the sect of Pharisees that believed, all right? So not all the Pharisees were wicked. Remember, the Pharisees, they were skilled in the law, but they believed in the afterlife. And that's something you have to believe in if you're going to believe in Yahushua resurrection, all right? Because you got to believe that the Most High raised him from the dead. So without further ado, let's get into this. So this is what I typed in on Google, Acts 25 and 26, Paul's Roman citizenship, right? In Acts 25 and 26, Paul uses his Roman citizenship to avoid unlawful punishment and ensure a fair trial, ultimately appealing to Caesar to protect his life from, it said Jewish, but we're not Jewish, we're Israelites, all right? We're the real authentic Jews. So I'm going to say Israelite leaders' plots, like the wicked Sadducees, Pharisees, scribes, so forth and so on. As a citizen born in Tarsus, Paul invokes his right to be tried before a Roman tribunal rather than a biased local council. Because if he would have went to Jerusalem, they would have seeked to kill him there, all right? It says, Acts 25, the appeal to Caesar. When Festus suggests a trial in Jerusalem, Paul asserts his rights, saying, I appeal to Caesar. That's in Acts chapter 25, verses 10 through 11. I'm going to read that. As a Roman citizen, he is entitled to have his case heard by the emperor. It says, Acts 26, defense before Agrippa. Paul presents his defense before King Agrippa, asserting that his ministry is a continuation of Israelite hope and that he has done nothing worthy of death, relying on his legal standing to present the gospel to a high-ranking officials. Significance. His citizenship protects him from being scourged without trial and provides safe passage to Rome, fulfilling his mission to preach there. Context. While not mentioned in his letters, Acts highlights his status as born free, likely due to his family status in Tarsus. It says, Paul uses his legal standing to advance his ministry rather than the personal gain, right? It says aligning with his commitment to sharing the gospel, all right, which was his office in Galatians, the 2nd chapter. So now, let's read this. So this is Acts chapter 25 and verse 1. It says, now when Festus was come into the province, after 3 days he ascended from Caesarea to Jerusalem. I'm going to read this in the NLT version, it's better. So this is Acts 25 and 1. 3 days after Festus arrived in Caesarea to take over his new responsibilities, he left for Jerusalem, where the leading priests and other Israelite leaders met with him and made their accusations against Paul. They asked Festus as a favor to transfer Paul to Jerusalem, planning to ambush and kill him along the way. See, this is why they wanted him to go to Jerusalem. Now, let's read this real quick, right? Let's read this real quick. So I typed in on Google why Paul wanted to appeal in a Roman court. I spelled it wrong, and not Jerusalem, right? Let's go down here. It says Paul appealed to the Roman court rather than Jerusalem, primarily to escape a plot by the Israelite leaders to murder him and to fulfill his mission to preach in Rome. As a Roman citizen, Paul knew a Jerusalem trial meant certain death, whereas an appeal to Caesar granted him safety, legal rights, and a direct journey to witness in the heart of the Roman Empire. It says key reasons for appealing to Rome. Survival, avoiding assassination. Paul knew that returning to Jerusalem to stand trial before the Sanhedrin was equivalent to a death sentence, as leaders were plotting an ambush to kill him on the way. Preventing partiality. Roman governors, specifically Fetus, were tempted to hand Paul over to the Israelite authorities to gain favor, making a fair trial in Judea impossible. Fulfilling divine mission. The Holy Spirit had previously instructed Paul that he must testify in Rome, making the appeal a strategic step to reach the capital. Using citizenship rights. As a Roman citizen, Paul was entitled to appeal to the emperor to avoid being delivered to his enemies. Sharing the gospel. Paul aimed to take the gospel to the highest levels of Roman power, eventually testifying before Caesar. By appealing, Paul secured protection under Roman custody, turning a precarious legal situation into an opportunity to advance his mission. All right? So there you go. So now back in Acts 22 and verse 2, right? In the NLT, whereas the leading priests and other Israelite leaders met with him, right? It says, and made their accusations against Paul. They asked Fetus as a favor to transfer Paul to Jerusalem, planning to ambush and kill him on the way. But Fetus replied that Paul was at Caesarea and he himself would be returning there soon. So he said, those of you in authority can return with me. If Paul has done anything wrong, you can make your accusations. About 8 or 10 days later, Fetus returned to Caesarea, and on the following day, he took his seat in court and ordered that Paul be brought in. When Paul arrived, the Israelite leaders from Jerusalem gathered around and made many serious accusations they couldn't prove. Paul denied the charges. I am not guilty of any crime against the Israelite laws or the temple or the Roman government, he said. Then Fetus, wanting to please the Jews, asked him, are you willing to go to Jerusalem and stand trial before me there? All right? Because now remember, they was planning to ambush him along the way and kill him. And even if he made it to Jerusalem, it wouldn't be fair because they would want him dead. More than likely, if they couldn't kill him along the way before he got to Jerusalem, then that Sanhedrin, which is all the Israelite leaders, the Sadducees, the wicked Pharisees, the top men under the Roman authority that were Israelites, governing the people by law, they would be there, and they pretty much would team up and order that Apostle Paul be killed or stoned. All right? So remember what Yahushua said, to use the world, don't abuse it. Paul used his Roman citizenship, use of wisdom when it really counted, when his life was on the line, to avoid persecution and to avoid death. And he allowed the Holy Spirit, to lead him out of danger. All right? Because when you preach in this word, it makes you a target, even to your own people, even other people or other Israelites that know that they're Israelites. All right? So this is what was going on. The same thing happened to Yahushua. They tried to bring false accusations against him. They tried to do the same thing with the 12 disciples, and they did the same thing to Paul, Silas, and his men. All right? So you're going to be in particular situations, because remember, Romans 15:4, you know, the things written aforetime is written for our learning. So you're going to be in particular situations to where you're going to have to use the laws of this land in order to avoid particular trials or tribulations. All right? So, yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, that's why he chose to appeal, you know, in front of Caesar in a Roman court rather than Jerusalem, because they was ambushing. They planned on ambushing him along the way while he was traveling there, and even if he made it there, they was gonna have him killed anyway. All right, so that's pretty much it. Lord willing, he was edified. Shalom.